So summer is here for us. We are now in our third official week of summer, but my kids are leaning into summer camps to bring enrichment to their time away from school. Now that we've had a little bit of time to reflect on the year, on how things have gone, I want to talk a little bit about our hits and our misses and how I am thinking about everything for next year. Hi, my name is Brecky and I am a homeschooling mom of 4. My oldest 2 sons are in high school and have been publicly schooled the whole way, but my younger 2 are twin girls who are now rising first graders. I cannot believe it. We are rising first graders. Holy moly. Holy moly. We have had a wild and wonderful first year of homeschooling. I don't think I ever made a video about how we got into it, but we fell into homeschooling sideways. The short version is a tree fell in our house and we couldn't afford our payment for daycare. And so we decided to homeschool for a year because of their birthdays. They were a month after the cutoff date. And now we've loved it and we're going to keep going until it's not the right choice for us or until they graduate, whichever one comes first. My husband and I really believe that we should be thinking about our kids' education year by year, child by child. And so this coming year, their first grade year, we're going to keep going. Now that we've had time to reflect on kindergarten, here are some thoughts that I have that I want to share with you about what has worked well and what has maybe not been as great for us. The first thing that I want to talk about is science. Now, science is something that has seemed like a giant struggle for everybody trying to teach early elementary school science. I don't care what your background is, early elementary school science seems to be a challenge. And as someone who wants a more secular curriculum, who identifies as a secular homeschooler, it seems like some of the only science curricula that is designed for younger students is religious. So we decided to go with the good and the beautiful. And we had 1 hit and 1 miss. So our hit was the Wind and Waves program. So this is little hearts, little hands, Wind and Waves. And this is the big book of science stories that goes along with it. And we loved this curriculum. We finished the whole thing. This curriculum covers everything from like weather to the water cycle, right? It has climate and weather and all that kind of stuff. And it goes all the way through like the ocean. So this is lightning and thunder. And then you get sea and seashells and animals of the ocean and the different ocean zones. We loved this. We did every single lesson in here and we read every single story in the big book of stories. And we just found this delightful. I really liked the diversity in here. I liked the fact that not everything was North American. There was someone from Brazil and then you were out in the Pacific and you were talking about different sorts of storms and how different people are impacted, but it was still perfect for a 5-year-old. Loved this. I loved that it was mostly open and go. And I loved the fact that the half of the lessons had a story that you read, and about half of the lessons had an audio narrative that you just opened the app, you listened to the audio narrative, and you were good to go. The experiments were mostly simple and pretty easy to implement or skip. You could skip the experiments and it didn't bother the lesson. And we loved this one. However, we started and tried to get into the Field and Flowers set. And we liked the first couple of lessons, which all had to do with like mushrooms and trees. And they were okay, right? We started out pretty strong. Like the mushrooms and moss was our favorite of all the lessons, but that's because I brought in a supplemental book, I think. However, these have movies. And the fact that it's a visual movie, you have to get your phone or your tablet out and set it up and watch the movie when what you're trying to do is a very kind of open and go book-based education. It just didn't work for us. I tried to even skip ahead and do some of what I thought would be more fun lessons with animals like the ants and ladybugs and things like that. Here's one on beetles. It just didn't work for us. The layout for this feels more clunky. It doesn't have everything for the experiments per chapter. You have to kind of go to the front. It's just not their best. And this was the first of the Little Hearts and Little Hands curriculum. And so I think they learned some lessons from what didn't work and then implemented them, made changes for the other ones, but we did not love this. This was a massive miss for us, and it was such a bummer because it's exactly the kind of thing we're interested in, but it just didn't work for us. So this we are going to be, I'm actually taking both of these to consignment, hopefully here in the next week or two. The other big miss for us was this flower study. I don't know why they call this a flower study. This is all you get, is this picture and then a few little facts, but that's like it. There's no lesson guide. There's no questions. It's just kind of meh. And this flower study came with a card game. It came with 2 picture books. And it cost the same amount as the little hearts and little hands. I just think that there's not enough in this to call it a study. I think if they said like a flower book, it would be fine. But the fact that they were billing it as a whole study, like with the game and the books and the whatever, maybe the game was separate and I had to add that in. I don't remember. But like, I was just not in love with this. I was not impressed with this. I could get everything in here from a good field guide and I would get more. So for the price and what you get and the fact that there's like no actual teaching supplements at all, there's no downloadable, this was a total miss for us. Now, before you think I'm just here to rag on the good and the beautiful, I'm not. We had some wins, and one of them is the early readers. Now, the Africa Reader, which is another favorite, is currently with my daughters up at my in-laws' house, and I'm going to be actually taking this up to them when I go see them in a couple days. But this is the First Nature Reader, and these are just great beginner readers. They go with the phonics program, but you don't have to use them with the phonics program. And so we have been integrating them as just an alternative or addition to the phonics readers that we are using with All About Reading, as well as the Bob books that we are using with All About Reading. So we've loved both of these. The Africa Reader, my first Africa Reader, and this, my First Nature Reader, have been fantastic. We have loved them. They are just the right length. The illustrations are wonderful. And this is just a great product. It's well made. And it's going to last. So if you are planning on homeschooling multiple children and you know you're going to be going through the same process, even if you don't use the good and the beautiful for phonics, the phonics readers are worth the investment. This is like $14, but it is a really nice bound book. And my 2 very feral daughters have been able to, they haven't destroyed it, which says a lot because they're pretty rough on the things they like, and they really do love this one and the Africa Reader. And since we're talking about my favorite curriculum of the whole year, it makes sense for me to go ahead and give you the greatest hit of all, and that was All About Reading. This is level 1, their phonics program. Oh, you guys, I love this program. We started out with a different phonics program, and I'll show you that because that was our biggest miss of the year. But this was our greatest hit, All About Reading. This phonics program was exactly what we needed. It's perfectly created for someone who does not know how to teach phonics. It holds your hand. It guides you every single step of the way. It gives you lots of explanations. So if you are someone who wants to know more of the why we're doing things the way we're doing things, every section has a little explanation in addition to how to teach the vocabulary and practice the phonics. I loved this. We also enjoyed the 3 readers. We've read 2 of the 3 that come along with it. This is number 3, I think. No, this is number 3. We haven't gotten to this one yet. But the other 2 are actually up at my in-laws because the girls are using those stories as practice. So they're going back and rereading as their summer reading practice. I couldn't say enough good stuff about All About Reading. It has been a phenomenal program. There's a reason why it's one of the most beloved in the homeschooling world, because it really works. I separate my girls. They each do phonics with me one-on-one. It's their only one-on-one set of lessons, and we've progressed really well. I was hoping that my bunny baby, who was more excited as a reader, would actually finish, but because my dad got sick and ended up passing away this spring, he got sick at the end of May. He'd been sick in and out with pneumonia and bronchitis starting in February, but he had a really bad case of pneumonia in the end of May, and he had to be put on a ventilator at the beginning of June and passed away in the middle of June. So we were not able to continue. So my more zesty reader got to, let's see here. So she was able to complete through lesson 35, which was a reading practice, and she was able to get through the phonics sound CK. So we still have about 20 lessons, just shy of 20 lessons, which will probably take us through all of August, maybe even into September of next year. And then we will just roll right into level 2, which is the green book. And I have it right up above me. It's sitting on a shelf waiting to go. So we're just going to keep going at their pace. My bunny baby, who is my slightly less zesty reader, she got all the way through lesson 27, which was review for the C8 or for initial blend sound. So this was the lesson, but it was review for initial blends. So she will definitely probably take through maybe even past their birthday, which is mid-September. So they will be able to work on this through the early fall, and my hope is before October, before our fall break, we will switch over and be able to maybe even finish all of the green book level 2 next year. So that would be so wonderful. But love All About Reading. I love how much they teach. I love how specific it is. I love how you can go at your own pace. I love that there's tons of games. There's so much review. You don't have to do all the review. You can just do what's right for your family and your kid. If your kid gets it, then you move on. If your kid doesn't get it, there's so many ways to help them practice before asking them to move on to a new and more challenging lesson. Love, 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 love All About Reading. But if All About Reading was our greatest hit, then our biggest miss of the year was All About Reading. Now, it's not because this is a terrible curriculum. It's not because this has no use. It's because this is really designed to be used in a micro school or with someone who has additional scaffolding. It's just not enough. This is just not enough practice on all these concepts for someone who is learning it all on their own. And I overextended. This has 3 journeys. One is letter sounds, and then 2 journeys of different letter combination sounds. And I was pushing them way too fast because I thought we should finish this in 1 year, when really this is more like 2 or 3 years worth of material. Not the right fit for us. I just needed more hand holding, and it needs scaffolding. So all the parents I talked to, they were saying, oh, we use Explode the Code alongside this, and we use this alongside this. And I just thought, if I'm going to have, we're teaching these second sounds, but you get 3 pages and then that's it. And there's no additional readers. The little stories in here there's no pictures. They have to make their own. It just did not work for us. So I don't want to have 2 or 3 curriculums to support this one when I can just buy All About Reading and it has everything ready to go with all different modes of learning. There's the kinesthetic games in All About Reading. There's the actual reading in the book. There's listening to your parent read out loud and repeating the sound as you practice. There's flashcards. I mean, there's just so many ways that you can take advantage of All About Reading, and this just did not have enough scaffolding to make it useful. So this was our biggest miss of the year for sure. Now, in addition to All About Reading, we had a couple other super hits that were just fantastic for us, and they were all books. So the first book series that was a hit was The Magic Tree House. Oh my goodness, did we love The Magic Tree House. There are, I think, 55 currently published Magic Tree House novels, and they only have 2.5 left. So we have just loved this series. This is one of the ones that I picked up at a thrift store. We're slowly collecting our favorites. This is great. We love Jack and Annie. They tend to be our bedtime read alouds. We have 2 read alouds a day. We have our kind of lunchtime read aloud and our bedtime read aloud. And Jack and Annie have been our bedtime buddies all year. They have been so fun. They're wholesome. They're fun. They're just adventurous enough to be exciting, but not to keep you awake and not to be scary. The kids have encountered so many wonderful historical times and places and people. Like, my 5-year-olds know who Marcus Aurelius is. I didn't even know who Marcus Aurelius was until I was in college. So really glad that we're reading the Magic Tree House books, loving them. If you've never checked them out, absolutely enjoy them. Don't listen to Charlotte Mason purists who say this is twaddle, because they don't know what they're talking about. These are great, 100% would recommend, and probably our favorite book series of the whole year for sure. The next two are definitely tied for our second favorite series, in part because we found these on audiobook and we've been able to listen to them over and over. These are our go-to audiobooks. So the first one is the Dragon Masters series. These are not exceptional, right? Like, these are really designed for early readers, particularly maybe boy readers who are struggling to get into reading. They are fine. As far as the content, there's nothing in there I find problematic. They're pretty wholesome. There are lots of teamwork, lessons on good versus evil, what happens when someone you care about makes bad choices. You know, there's a lot of good morality and character building in these. But, you know, when we think about like Magic Treehouse, these just don't compare. These are so much better. But we found these on audiobook and we love the audiobooks. So this is one of our favorite go-to audiobook series. And then our favorite audiobook series is The Kingdom of Renly. Again, these are just sweet. They're fun. They're a little bit goofy, but they're not crude, right? There's no like fart jokes or anything like that. They're very cute. They're very adventuresome. The main characters are both 8 years old. They have to learn lessons and they have to try new things and they have to help save their magical land of Renly. And the books themselves have, you know, these will be great starting readers. So I purchased one of them. We checked them out from the library and then discovered there were audiobooks and have been listening to them on audiobook ever since. So we've read all but one book in this series, I think. I think there's one book that our library has only one copy of, and we are waiting on getting in line for it. There are, I think, 22 books in the series, so there's quite a few, and I was able to get the first 16 on audiobook. I found them on Everand. I've been a member of Everand since it was a brand new startup called Scribd, probably like 10 years ago is when I joined. So I've had my audiobook subscription for a super long time. You check them out kind of like the library, but you have to pay for them. But these are probably our 3 favorite series of books for the year. The only other 2 books I would mention as favorites for read-alouds was the Heartwood Hotel, the whole series, but particularly the Heartwood Hotel. Oh my goodness. Talk about wholesome and sweet. We loved it. Mona and Mr. Heartwood and all the friends was just the most perfect, tender-hearted book. And we struggled with some of the more slower kinds of books, but we really, really loved Heartwood Hotel. We also really, really loved Where the Mountain Meets the Moon, and what a beautifully written book. What a lovely story. It was really long. It was like 275 pages, and I thought that might be too long for my 5-year-olds, but they requested this book over and over again. We would read 2 or 3 chapters at a time because they just loved it so much. It's their first kind of epic mythic novel, so I might try another one from Grace Lynn this coming year. But these are both library finds, and yeah, we loved them both. So there we have it, our hits and our misses for kindergarten. There were lots of stuff that were in the middle. They weren't super hits and they weren't super misses. Like Math with Confidence was fine. Did I love it completely? No, it was a lot of prep work and that was exhausting for me. Now I understand what's going to be asked and I'm going to be able to accommodate that. But it was a fine program. The Build Your Library Around the World in Picture Books was a fine program. We just didn't utilize it the way you're supposed to. We kind of did our own thing. So I can't really speak to whether or not the program itself is good because I decided I didn't want to follow it the way it was written. So I did my own thing. I used it more as a book list. That said, everything we tried, there was only a few things that super did not work for us. And realistically, it was treasure hunt reading that was the big no-go. And then Fields and Flowers by Little Hearts and Little Hands. Those 2 just didn't fit. But everything else worked really well. This has made me think about what our strengths and weaknesses are as we plan for next year. I don't think I'm going to make any changes to what I plan for next year. Comment down below and let me know what your greatest hit and your greatest miss of the year were. And if you have any recommendations based on what we did well with for my girls for next year, I'm always looking for good books. I know there's a lot of classics that everybody loves and I have a whole stack of them, but if you have some more modern like readers that I can read aloud to the kids, my rising first graders, they will turn 6 in the fall. If you have any recommendations for good books, I'm always looking. All right, I hope you guys are doing well and staying cool this summer. Bye.